Hey everybody, on today's episode of the Founder University podcast, we've got a great talk on cybersecurity, specifically how cybersecurity can differentiate your business. In this talk, we hear from David Derigiotis, the CIO at Embroker. And in this talk, you'll learn how to protect your business from cyber threats and why this is more important now than ever before. All right, let's get into it.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is David Derigiotis. I'm the Chief Insurance Officer with Embroker. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how cybersecurity can differentiate your business. There's no question around the concerns that everybody has for cyber attacks, ransomware, security incidents. It's in the headlines every single day. So I want to talk about why it's important to not only invest, but how it can also be used as a differentiator for you and your organization, why it's important to your clients, customers, and your vendors as well. So just a quick little background on myself. Again, my name is David Derigiotis. I'm the Chief Insurance Officer with Embroker. I oversee all of our insurance programs, products, claims, and actuarial services for the InsurTech. I have 20 years of experience within the specialty professional cyber risk management liability space. Prior to Embroker, I was the national practice group leader with an international wholesale insurance broker overseeing their specialty underwriting programs within professional cyber risk, D&O, as well as all of their brokerage operations as well. And prior to that, I also have experience with 2 different international A-rated insurance companies, again, all within the special professional liability and cyber risk space. I'm also a certified information privacy professional with a concentration in U.S. privacy law, a certified information privacy manager, and I'm a fellow of information privacy with the International Association of Privacy Professionals. So that's a quick overview of my background. Now I want to get into why is this important? Why are we talking about this? Why now? What's the big deal? There are a few things that are going on across not only the United States, but really internationally as well. Of course, we have GDPR, which is important for anybody that collects information or does business in the UK and abroad, overseas. We also have brand new news of the National Cybersecurity Strategy that was issued by the White House. And again, this is something that they talk about really every year, every presidency. But what's unique about this is, a couple of the finer points that they pointed out within their release. So I want to read specifically from the press release. I want to talk about what that means. They stated, we must rebalance the responsibility to defend cyberspace by shifting the burden for cybersecurity away from individual small businesses and local governments and onto organizations that are the most capable and best positioned to reduce risks for all of us. And the White House released that specifically last month. So what does that mean? They're looking to change liability and pass off liability from not only just the organization that experiences the data breach, and again, we hear about these in the news quite frequently, but they're looking to specifically hold software companies liable for failing to build security into their products. Now, there's some work that's going to have to go into making this a reality. There's going to have to be legislation that's passed, but they have stated that's their intent. So any organization, and that's a big part of what our client base is made up of, all sorts of technology companies, SaaS companies, technology related, across all sorts of industry segments. They're looking to hold those organizations accountable for data breaches and security lapses if they did not invest and spend the time and quality around security and privacy within those products. So just something to keep in mind. Again, we're a ways off before that becomes a reality, but it's just important to understand what's on the minds of leaders and those in Washington. We also have a number of privacy consumer laws across the United States because we don't have a national privacy law that's in place. And that's been something that Congress has fought over for many years for a variety of reasons. But what we have seen as a result of that absence is different states popping up with their own consumer privacy laws. So as it stands today, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Virginia, and Utah all have specific consumer privacy laws. And there are about 20 other states as well that have active language where they're looking to pass and get new laws into place. We see this every single year. There are all sorts of laws that will be proposed and regulation that's proposed. A lot of them don't make it through on the other side, but every now and again we see another pop through and we see another state that goes live. And that's what we've seen with this year as well. So it's just important to understand if you're collecting information on a consumer or a client that's based in those states, there'll be additional privacy regulations and rules that you'll have to be in compliance with. Some of those things include giving consumers the right to access their information, the right to correct that information, giving them the right to delete that information, and of course, having the proper notice and transparency requirements for them to view and make sure that they're okay and comfortable with that type of data being collected, shared, or sold with any other organization. So it's just important to understand what's going on. From a regulatory standpoint, we are seeing more regulation around privacy risk. We are seeing more regulation around consumer rights. So again, depending on where you're operating your business and what type of clients and customers you're serving, these certainly could apply to you. And of course, ransomware has been in the news a lot. There was a little bit of a lull last year, but it's become extraordinarily active again, all of these different operators and groups in 2023. So I want to spend a little bit of time showing you some ransomware operators from the dark web. I want to give you a view of what it looks like when they compromise an organization and they share that organization's data online for others to access. It's something that I think is important to understand, to know what happens on the back end when a compromise like that does occur, and to know how you can prevent it from taking place or be properly prepared in the event that something does happen. So, and then of course, there's all sorts of emerging technologies that we need to keep our eyes on. ChatGPT has been one, artificial intelligence, that's been in the news quite a bit. It's important to understand how those services operate and the way that they're utilized. And I think it's important to understand how it could potentially expose your organization if you have employees that are using it. There's nothing that is, in terms of privacy, there's nothing that's protected from a confidentiality standpoint if employees and individuals are using it. And there's already been a case where one organization, their employees were putting very sensitive source code information into it because they were looking to solve a problem with coding errors that were taking place. Another instance, there was a employee that uploaded group meetings or employee meetings into the interface, and they were looking to have those notes rewritten so that they can share it with everybody. Sounds harmless until you realize you're sharing very sensitive, confidential corporate information into a system that is being monitored in real time by all of the researchers, and there could be a data breach. You never know what can happen. So it's important to know if you're going to allow your employees to utilize and access these types of tools, you want to be careful about what is specifically being shared in terms of trade secrets or very sensitive corporate information. So these are some of the things that are going on overall, across the United States when it comes to a privacy, regulatory, and cybersecurity standpoint. So let's look at some of the numbers now. Again, I don't think it's a surprise to know that cyber risk is on the mind of all sorts of organizations, large and small. The cost of cybercrime is expected to hit $8 trillion this year. That's globally. Cyber attack concerns have risen from 36% to 50% in 2022. And that's some interesting data. What Embroker did last year in late Q4 is we published a report, and we wanted to survey over 400 of our clients, our VC-backed clients, to figure out how cybersecurity was on their mind, how it was impacting their organization, and some of the things that they were worried about. And again, 50% responded and said that they expect to experience a cyber attack in the year ahead. That was a 14% increase from last year. 68% responded and said that they've actually experienced an attack at some point. So again, we're talking more than half of all those individuals that we surveyed have already experienced some type of attack. There's obviously going to be costs associated with dealing with it, with managing all of that, and it's a real drain on resources. 97% said that they discussed cyber risk and related issues with their board of directors. So again, knowing that this is something that's reaching the highest plateau, highest peaks within the organization. And again, it's no surprise to hear those things, that cyber risk is on their mind, that they've experienced an attack, and that they're forecasting there to be some type of attack going forward. And I think if you look at some of the data that's being shared, in particular by the FBI, you look at some of the largest losses that are taking place within organizations, large and small. There's something what's called a business email compromise attack, BEC attacks. Those grew by 13% in 2022 over the prior year. And we're talking about $2.7 billion in business email compromise. And what that is, you can have somebody that will either spoof an email, or they will actually compromise somebody's email inbox, and they will send an email that looks like, or it's under the guise of the CEO or the CFO or somebody that's in a position of authority, and they'll be asking to wire transfer some amount of money. And this has been a serious loss leader for the insurance industry because policyholders, again, of all sizes, all industry sectors, have been impacted and hurt by this. So it's something to keep an eye on. And I want to talk about some of the things later on in the presentation that you can do to make a difference there and to curb some of those attacks and those threats. So what can you do to protect your business? Again, part of this is talking about how cybersecurity and investing in this space can not only help you as an organization, but really how it can be a differentiator for you in terms of your brand and how you serve and protect all of the data that you collect on your clients. So I talked about electronic funds transfer, that being a very important and significant part of losses. There are a few things that you need to do to make sure that you're not falling victim to these types of attacks. Of course, setting up multi-factor authentication is a big one within your email and other privileged accounts and other systems, other apps that you're using. Giving that second barrier or forcing that second barrier will make it much tougher when somebody just has an email address and a password to be able to access your account. So that's first and foremost. But there are some rules that you should put in place internally to be able to catch any type of fraudulent wire transfer request. Number one, confirm the requester's identity. Before proceeding with any wire transfer request, it's important to verify the identity of the person that's requesting that transfer. You can do this by calling the person, using a known phone number that you have on file for that individual, or using a separate email to respond back to the request. Don't go through the initial request that you've received. I've seen that happen from time to time, and all the person does is respond back to the attacker, and they're saying, yep, go ahead, and we're confirming this, go ahead and send it. And then the person sends it, and then they're out that money. Number two, you're going to want to verify the details of the wire transfer. So again, going over the name, the account number, bank routing number, all of those details is going to be very important to look for any discrepancies or any false information that's on there. Number three is going to be use a secondary verification method as well. Maybe having another form of communication, an app, some type of chatbot, some type of phone number that you have on file, again, to re-verify that the verification is accurate. And then look for some red flags. I think that's very important. That's going to come into training and developing your staff. Look for red flags such as a rush request or an urgent request, or something that's unexpected, a change in payment instructions, a request for secrecy if it's coming from, they think it's coming from the CEO or the CFO. Those are some of the things that should be really jumping out to you, and they'd have to be really investigated to make sure that you're not falling victim to these types of attacks. So I think those are very important. That goes in line with, of course, training your employees in knowing what to look for. I think if any organization has this type of plan in place, it's going to allow them to really thwart or prevent 99% of the attacks that takes place. And again, this is an area of losses that the insurance industry as a whole have really experienced quite significantly over the last several years, and they've really ramped up probably within the last 12 to 18 months quite considerably. And then I think there were some other things outside of that. Again, I talked about how to verify, having the process in place, making sure that you're reviewing access to the information that's being collected, making sure that you have a good understanding of the data that your organization is collecting, storing, sharing with others, and of course, being transparent with your clients and customers about the data that you're collecting. It's going to allow you to operate in compliance with the various laws, rules, and regulations all across the country, whether they're federal or state specific. And I think making sure that you have the proper insurance is another big one. That's going to help round out any risk management program. Make sure that you're not only investing in your technology and in your compliance, but in the event that you need to go a little bit deeper in terms of resources, in terms of forensic firms having access to these types of organizations, a cyber insurance policy is going to do all of that for you. So it's looking at cyber insurance as more than just the necessary evil in form of other lines of insurance that you have to purchase. But I like to look at cyber insurance almost as an investment, because it's going to come with all sorts of risk management tools. It's going to come with access to the appropriate vendors, and of course, what anybody expects from insurance, which is that financial protection, that balance sheet protection in the event that something does happen. So now what I want to do here is I want to show a few screenshots, and this is of the dark web. This is a couple of different ransomware operators, and I want to give you a feel for what it looks like. Ransomware attacks, again, they took a little bit of a lull last year, but they're certainly back on the rise now in 2023 with no signs of really slowing down. But what will happen is, like this particular group, if you look at one of the top screenshots here, they give instructions around what to do if there's a compromise. Typically, they're going to walk the victim organization through the process, how to purchase Bitcoin, maybe send a little bit through initially to show that the transaction is open and they did it correctly. Then you can send the rest of the amount that they asked for shortly after that. You can also see that there's a warning sign, or really a warning message at the bottom where they don't want any negotiators involved. And again, I can understand why they don't want it, because typically the cost of what the ransom demand is typically brought down. And they just simply don't like dealing with anybody that has the expertise, has the knowledge, or is there to assist. They want to keep the pressure on the organization, while they're afraid, while they're backpedaling, and while they're scrambling. So that's one particular screenshot from a ransomware operator where they give the instructions and they have a warning built in as well. If you look at the screenshot next to that, that's what it looks like when they're making information publicly available. So a lot of these ransomware operators have their own PR page on the dark web. And what they've done here is, maybe it was an organization that decided not to pay. They just make all of the data that they captured absolutely free and accessible to anybody who knows where to get it. So this is what one bit of information looks like. You can go through and click through the various files, pull up the various documents. There are PDFs. There could be all sorts of other spreadsheets that are within there that have social security numbers, that have dates of birth, and could have financial information within there. But this is typically what it looks like when that information is in fact made public. And then there's a screenshot of another ransomware operator here on the bottom left, just to get a feel for what it looks like. And the one that's been extremely active as of late is Lockbit 3.0. And here you're going to see a host of organizations that they have compromised and that they have put up kind of on their wall of shame to show that, if they don't make a payment, there will be negative consequences for that. And typically that's double extortion. There's a compromise, they lock up all of your files, but before they do that, they exfiltrate all of the data and they pressure you. If you want access back to your systems and your data, you better pay. If you don't pay, well, they took your information and they're going to dump it online and make it available to anybody who wants it. So this is the behind the scenes look at what some of these groups look like and how they operate. Now, this next one is just a few other screenshots across the dark web. With so many individuals working from home, I think it's important to understand the added risk that an organization has. We have computers that are being used by parents, they're being used by children, they're used by other members of people in the house. And when that happens, you can end up with some type of malware that's constantly collecting passwords and other sensitive information. And that's what we have right here, where logs are being made available, for purchase. Here we have some other screenshots, again, of other services that are available on the dark web. You can see in the far right one, there's a hacker for hire. They're looking to offer some of their services. You can see the cost, just like any other website that you might go to where you're looking to pay for services rendered. Here that you can pay in Bitcoin, and they'll do all sorts of things. They'll spend time attacking somebody's Facebook or Twitter account. They'll spend time attacking somebody's mobile device, or you can even hire them for a full 30 days if you like, for the price of $9,500, and they'll do whatever project you want to assign to them. So again, these are some of the risks that we face as organizations and individuals, and some of the services that are available online on the dark web. Now, how can you leverage this to really differentiate yourself? I think it's important to really showcase your commitment to clients. You can include a cybersecurity statement on your website that really shows your commitment to security and the measures that you have in place to protect your customers' data, as well as any certifications that you might hold. I think it's important to leverage social media as well. Social media platforms can be used to promote the company's cybersecurity initiatives, share relevant news and information, educate your customers on best practices. So if you're spending the time doing these things, if you're spending the money and making that investment to protect data and to show that you care about privacy, cybersecurity risk, I think it's important to very carefully share that information. You don't want to be shouting from the top of the rooftops. I think that can certainly draw attention to you. But again, having a statement on your website for the clients that visit, leveraging your social media accounts to talk about some of the things that you're doing. You can even host a webinar or event that focuses on a variety of cybersecurity topics, such as data protection, could be identity theft prevention that you have in place, as well as other secure online practices that you have implemented. Doing this will showcase to your customers that the company's invested in educating and protecting them. I think providing resources for your clients is a nice thing that you can do as well. Businesses offer all sorts of resources, whether it's a white paper, ebooks, or infographics that provide clients with cybersecurity best practices and tips to help them stay safe online. So those are some of the things that a business can do to showcase the investment that they're making and why it's important. And I think that gives a little bit more comfort to clients that are doing business with you. And I think some of the things that you don't do also speak volumes, because we've all seen all sorts of data breaches and security incidents that have taken place over the years, and it was handled in a complete debacle. It was handled in a manner that left people frustrated. There was not a lot of transparency. So avoiding some of the pitfalls that organizations have made in the past, I think will go a long way. If you look at some of the most common mistakes that organizations make, delayed response in notifying their clients or disclosing the breach that took place, providing inadequate communication. I've seen cases where companies provide very vague or incomplete information about the breach. It just leads to confusion and frustration from those that have been impacted. And then insufficient preparation, companies not taking the time, ahead of the event. You have to forecast and plan for something to take place. You have to have a good incident response plan in place. And if you don't, it can lead to all sorts of disorganization and ineffective response when something does happen. And I think lack of transparency is another big one. Companies not providing clear information about what information was compromised, who was affected, and what are the steps being taken to prevent something from happening in the future going forward. I think those are big mistakes that organizations make. And then last is really a failure to take responsibility. Companies deflect blame or they downplay the severity of the event. I've seen that plenty of times where they release a statement and it talks about, they'll give a number or type of data that was impacted, and that only has to be revised coming out 3 days later, 4 days later, by expanding that number and expanding the type of data that was involved. I think those are things that really frustrate many consumers, many individuals that are doing business with that organization. So it's all about handling it in a correct manner. Prompt notification. Companies that promptly notify affected individuals of the breach and provide clear information about what data was affected and what steps are being taken are very important. Transparency, being transparent and crystal clear about the breach and taking responsibility for any mistakes that have been made, having very clear communication around what exactly happened in timeline, trying to minimize any type of uncertainty or confusion that arises following a data breach, and then providing adequate customer support. I think making sure that you're providing, whether it's a call center, free credit monitoring, other services that can help remedy the situation are very important. And that's all tied up with preparation as well. Making sure that you're taking the steps ahead of time, you're rehearsing, you have people designated across a variety of different areas within your organization that know what to do, that can snap into action. Having that incident response plan in place will go a long way. And again, insurance can help with a lot of these things because cyber insurance has become so much more than just financial risk transfer. But again, it's the services and access and risk management to all of these tools, all of these vendors that can help any organization prepare ahead of time, as well as deal with an incident when they're in the thick of it as well. So you want to be very proactive, not reactive. Engage with your customer base, provide information that can help benefit them, which will include all sorts of resources and tools that will show your commitment to cybersecurity. So I know that was a lot of information. I wanted to close by sharing maybe some free resources that I think will be very important and you can look into to have access to. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, CISA, they provide a range of different tools and resources, including best practices, guidance documents, toolkits for businesses to implement security measures. They also offer some free vulnerability scanning and assessment services, which I think is important to take full advantage of. There's NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They provide a framework that can help businesses identify, assess, manage cybersecurity risk, and includes guidelines and standards for securing your systems and networks. And then there's a website that I think is important to take a look at, or at least have in the back pocket, stopransomware.gov. And it's from the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency. Again, they provide a range of resources, tools to help you prepare for dealing with ransomware, to help you manage it if you're in the thick of it, and to just provide better education and understanding around the most recent threats in groups that are very active. So all of these tools can be utilized absolutely for free. And I think implementing and having a commitment to cybersecurity will not only benefit you as an organization, but it will help differentiate you as well, which is very important. And of course, you can go to our website, embroker.com/startups, to take a look at the resources, tools, and access that we have to a variety of insurance products as well. Thank you.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. And if you want to see more tactical content, be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcast player. If you want to rate and subscribe, that's great. And if you've got an idea right now and you're inspired to build an MVP or an idea that you want to build into an actual company, just apply to my 12-week course, Founder University, at founder.university/apply. It's free to come to the Founder University if you come to all 12 weeks. And we invest $25,000 in the top graduates to help them grow even more. Again, you can apply for the upcoming cohort, founder.university/apply. And if you would like to give a tactical talk here on this pod, you can submit your presentation at founder.university/submit.